It seems almost everyone involved with the charity Kids Company is to blame for its demise. A new Commons report out today concluded there was an extraordinary catalogue of failures, criticising bosses, trustees, the charity watchdog and even senior ministers. It comes as ITV News has learned the charity itself commissioned a report 10 years ago which singled out Camilla Batman-Gelic as the cause of many of its problems, a report which was never published. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the details.
Camilla Batman-Gelic can't have been expecting a glowing report. When the MPs questioned her in October, they didn't hide their contempt.
You give a non-stop spiel, mostly psychobabble.
Today, the Commons Public Administration Committee delivered its verdict on the way Kids Company was run by its flamboyant founder.
What is evident in this charity is a whole litany of risks were allowed to persist for a very long period. A very large personality who was allowed to dominate the whole running of the charity and allowed to get her own way when it clearly added risk to the charity.
The committee said it found a catalogue of failings which should have rung alarm bells with the charity's trustees. The MPs say donors were expressing concerns about the way Kids Company was run as far back as 2002. And ITV News has seen a secret internal report commissioned by the charity 10 years ago. The warnings it contained couldn't have been clearer. The report from consultants New Philanthropy Capital concluded many of the commendable aspects of Kids Company are attributable to Camilla. Many of the problems, though, are also attributable to Camilla. Weak finances, conflicting information about numbers of users, the absence to date of any internal attempt even to track and record results, over-reliance on one member of staff and lack of any strategic planning all threaten its long-run sustainability.
The trustees saw the report, the management saw the report, they discussed it. Exactly what they did with it was a matter for them, not for us. But clearly they didn't make the necessary adjustments, and that's why in the end the whole charity crashed, and that is a big shame for everybody.
But one former senior manager at Kids Company believes the charity might have survived, but for unproven allegations of sexual and physical abuse.
We were in negotiation with the 4 philanthropists to restructure Kids Company, and they were very happy to take over Kids Company until the moment the allegation of sexual abuse came in.
Miss Batman-Gelic declined our request for an interview today. The charity's trustees described the MP's findings as inaccurate, unbalanced and unreasonable.
Another investigation, more criticism. Is this the end of it now?
Well, we know the police have dropped their investigation into reports of sexual abuse because of a lack of evidence. That was announced last week. But there's still an investigation underway by the Charity Commission into the financial management of Kids Company. This, after all, is a charity which received almost £50 million of taxpayer and lottery money over a 15-year period. Now, the Charity Commission says it wants to identify wider lessons for other charities. But the MPs, when they published their report today, said it's the Charity Commission which needs to do more to encourage whistleblowers if they suspect financial mismanagement at charities.
All right, Simon, thank you. Hands up if you've visited the Olympic Park since the London Games. Not enough people have, and that's costing Londoners more than £1 million a year. Since 2012, it's changed its name, has hosted a few key events and transformed some of the main venues. It's even turning the orbit into a giant slide. But we found out today that too comes with a huge cost to the taxpayer, £3.5 million. So is the legacy lost? Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
It was meant as a work of art, but this giant sculpture is being turned into a funfair ride to try to stop it hemorrhaging money. The loss-making Orbit Tower in London's Olympic Park is being fitted with a helter-skelter slide at a cost of £3.5 million. But the Orbit isn't the only park attraction not yet making money. The London Aquatic Centre was one of the iconic venues of the 2012 Games. Almost 1 million people a year now use it. But like the Orbit, it's making a loss and could do indefinitely. According to the London Legacy Development Corporation, which runs the park, the Aquatic Centre and Copper Box Arena had a combined loss of £642,000 in the last financial year. The Orbit made a loss of £520,000. When can Londoners expect these venues to be making a profit?
Well, I think venues like swimming pools don't, generally do receive public some public subsidy when they're
They'll never make a profit.
I'm not saying they'll never make. I think the orbit will make a profit. I've said in about 5 years' time we expect the orbit itself to make a profit with the slide. I think that the aquatic centre and the copper box we plan at the moment to expect them to require ongoing subsidy.
The official price tag for the Olympics is around £9 billion of public money. The promise of no white elephants was at the heart of the legacy plan.
It's important for public confidence and sustainability that all the venues are self-financing, unless there are exceptional reasons as to why not. And I'm surprised by the reported losses at the Aquatic Centre.
The Orbit Helter Skelter is being promoted as the longest covered slide in the world.
It's just going into orbit, isn't it? We've got £10.4 million worth of debt on it already. It's going to cost you £17 to use the slide, £10 to go up, £12 to go up, and £5 to come back down again. And you're going to need 750,000 people to use it before you actually get your money back. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Olympic Park bosses argue the losses and subsidies at some of these multi-million-pound sports facilities are more than offset by the new homes and jobs, which are another part of the London 2012 legacy.
You said there the promise of no more white elephants. It feels like we're doing the story about the beginning of the Millennium Dome all over again. Is there any hope that these venues will eventually make some money?
Well, if you factored in the bill for building them, I don't think they'd break even for generations. The Aquatic Centre alone cost £1/3 billion. But of course, those costs were part of the government's Olympic budget, so are no longer part of the equation. What legacy bosses are really relying on is that the 24,000 new homes being built in the park in the coming years and the 40,000 new jobs that are coming will generate yet more people wanting to use these amazing sporting facilities. And of course, next year, the World Athletics Championships will be held in the main stadium, so even more visitors will come into the park. And I think it's worth remembering that when we talk about legacy and no white elephants, set in the context of what happened in other cities. Remember Athens, where stadiums were just left to rot? Nothing quite like that has happened in London.
All right, Simon, thank you. There was the first real sign today that the long-running dispute over the night tube could soon be over. The biggest London Underground union, the RMT, will tell its members to accept the latest offer on pay and working conditions. Simon Harris joins me now. What's the offer and what has the RMT said?
Well, this does look like the breakthrough that Boris Johnson and his transport bosses have been waiting for. The RMT is the biggest tube union, and if it really is calling an end to this long-running dispute over pay and roster, then the night tube will certainly be back on. Tube workers have been offered a 4-year pay deal. That includes an above-inflation pay rise backdated to last April and a £500 bonus for all staff who work on the new 24-hour tube. And although one union, Unite, rejected the pay deal today, the other big union, the drivers' union ASLIF, is almost certain to accept it. And if RMT members are now being urged by their union to say yes, it looks like it's all over.
The National Executive have decided to have a referendum postal vote of every member. It's the democracy of the union in action who will have the final say on whether or not we accept this pay offer and these arrangements. So that's what's going to happen next.
So potentially one dispute, a big dispute resolved, but another still to be debated.
Another old row about ticket office closures led to 2 strikes last year. The RMTs are planning another 48-hour stoppage, which will take out a lot of trains and stations on Sunday and Monday. But the good thing is the two sides are talking.
Simon, thank you.
One thing's for certain about Boris's plan to tackle congestion. If it ever happens, he won't be in office. And with 91 days to go till his successor takes over, Sadiq Khan and Zach Goldsmith went face-to-face in ITV's late debate. Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris is over at Westminster for us. So how did it go, Simon?
Charlene, there's no shortage of people who want to replace Boris Johnson as London's next mayor. There are candidates from all of the main parties as well as independents. But in truth, as you suggest, this is a 2-horse race between Labour and Conservative. In recent weeks, Sadiq Khan and Zach Goldsmith have been trading insults. Khan calls Goldsmith a serial underachiever. Goldsmith calls Khan divisive. Well, tonight they go head-to-head.
if you've got a mayor with the experience and the vision, I'm afraid this is lazy stuff from Zach, desperate stuff. I've set out a fully funded fare package. TfL don't say you will pay exactly the same fares in 2020 as you pay now, not a penny more. That's the promise I'm making.
But if you disagree with the 1.9 billion which Transport for London
they don't say that.
That's exactly what they're saying.
They don't say that.
I've seen the figures.
I've spoken to TfL on a regular basis.
They published the report saying that it would be 1.9 million.
So what
it
will
doesn't matter how many times you say it's not there, it's there in black and white. It's unprecedented.
It's for Londoners to choose between a mayor who's got the experience and the vision, or somebody who's been sloppy and lazy.
The choice is between someone who is capable of telling the truth and someone who's willing to mislead voters. And that's, I'm afraid, what we're seeing here today. This transport stuff we're hearing from Sadiq Khan is fantasy nonsense. It's Corbyn madness. It simply does not add up.
And to see more of those fiery exchanges, join me for the late debate here on ITV at 10:45. Charlene.
Thanks very much, Simon.